Welcome to SPL Express. It's great to have your company as always. It's great to be in the company of this man, former pro Rhysh Roshan Rai. Roshan, so much to talk about in what was possibly a pivotal weekend in the Singapore Premier League. 28 goals scored across 4 games over the weekend. Albirex Niigata fighting back from 3-1 down at half-time to claim an important 5-3 victory against Balestier. Tampines Rovers made light work of Young Lions meanwhile with a 7-0 win, while Geylang United grabbed a late draw against Tanjong Pagar. And the result of the week, Geylang International with an immense performance as they sank the Lion City Sailors 3-1. So that means with 5 matches to go, the Sailors and Albirex are tied at the top of the table on 51 points. Sailors with the upper hand though thanks to a superior goal difference. Tampines Rovers sit in third, 4 points ahead of Geylang International, while just a point separates Tanjong Pagar and Hougang. This week's action kicks off with Tanjong Pagar entertaining Balestier on Friday. The big one on Saturday, Tampines Rovers playing host to Lion City Sailors at our Tampines hub, while Albirex Niigata take on the Young Lions. And on Sunday, Geylang International will look to continue the impressive form when they welcome Hougang United. So there's definitely lots to talk about. Let's dive straight into it, Roshan, with that game on Friday. Tanjong Pagar up against Balestier. Tanjong Pagar winless in 6 games. What's happened? I mean, have they run out of steam of sorts?
I think perhaps a little bit. I think it's a bit of that reversion to the mean that we sometimes talk about. They're starting to sort of slide down into those positions that most of us observers of Singapore football thought they would end up in anyway come the end of the season. That's not to say they weren't brilliant. The first, half or more than the first half of the season, first 3 quarters of the season perhaps I should say, where they were very strong in terms of how they were able to put their chances away, how they were able to get those results across the line. But now perhaps, they peaked a little bit too early in the campaign and it's starting to just dip for them. But look, I mean, it's difficult to be too critical of them. I think they are where, again, as I said, as I repeat, a lot of us expected them to be. But it is a bit of a shame in the sense that where they were and where they could have been come the end of the campaign, that they weren't able to maintain that sort of form. It is starting to come back and bite them a little bit. Although, I thought their performance against Hougang in the last match was actually pretty decent. Just were unable to hang on for all 3 points, but there's still a little bit of fight left in this Tanjong Pagar side.
Well, is it a case of not having enough quality as well? Because if we look at some statistics that we've pulled out, Tanjong Pagar have not fared greatly. As in, if we look at this here, for chance conversion, as you mentioned, they've done decently well. But for the rest of the stats, well, they're ranked bottom of the league.
They've done incredibly well for their chance conversion. I mean, you look at that tied second in the SPL. That's an amazing number for this side, and I think that's partly why they were doing so well in the earlier stages of the campaign. You see, possession doesn't really matter because they're not really a team that plays with a lot of football or wants to have a lot of the football anyway. So that's fine to me. Passing accuracy, yeah, that's something that could be improved upon. But again, when you look at passing accuracy, you have to look at the way a team actually sets up to play, and they're a side who likes to play a little bit more direct, longer passes. So in that sense, your passing accuracy does dip. You're taking a few more chances, you're taking a few more risks. So again, that perhaps is a little bit more understandable. But the tackles won, that one is surprising to me. 51%, which is 8 in the league. If you're a side who sets up to be, dogged, as you said, defensively and tries to be compact, then you need to be winning quite a lot of those because you're going to have plenty of opportunities. When you don't have much of the ball, what are you doing? You're sitting back and you're trying to win the ball a little bit more. So we tend to see sides who give possession away to the opposition have a little bit higher in terms of their tackles, 1 percentages, the defensive actions, those percentages, those numbers are a little bit higher as well. So this one, that number there that's quite low is a bit of a concern for me overall. So perhaps they have been overachieving their expected points total, perhaps Tanjong Pagar this season. And it's because they have a special player up front in Ryo Nishiguchi with his 20 goals that he scored. And without him, they would really have struggled this campaign because, again, he's the type of player who can create something out of nothing. And a goal scorer, those are the kind of players who win matches for you. And he's been the key player in this side, especially when you look at further numbers in terms of the number of goals he scored compared to the rest of the teammates. There's a big gulf in class there.
Okay, quick one. Last one on Tanjong Pagar. This game against Balestier. How important is the result here, especially against a Balestier side who are struggling as well?
Yeah, Balestier side who are struggling and a little bit of a transition at the moment, although there were parts of their game that were pretty good against Albirex Niigata. Their energy was good in that match. It just couldn't hang on for the second half. But Tanjong Pagar, I think this is a good game for them, playing at home against a Balestier side. As I said, some issues off the pitch as well, some transition going on the pitch, and for the Jaguars to beat that streak or get out of that streak where they've run now 6 matches without a win. So it's a good opportunity for them to pick up 3 points here.
Let's talk about Albirex up against Young Lions. Albirex, they must be buzzing after the result. We saw Jalan Besar, Sailors dropping points, and now their level of points, it's theirs. The title is theirs to be won, actually, and it's there for the taking. How important is the game against Young Lions, and what do you think do you think Yoshinaga should rotate against the Young Lions?
Has he ever rotated this season? I don't think he has, Yoshinaga. He always comes out in every game. The question about his lineups, which is always asked to him, in his 10-second answers, is always that got to respect the opposition. 10 is generous. Respect the opposition and put out the strongest possible side. And we haven't seen too much rotation from him this campaign, so I don't think we'll see that. And I think it's a case of him wanting to put his strongest side out all the time. And let's also remember, goal difference could be important. You mentioned the fact that they're back level in terms of points, 51 each, I think, coming into this weekend. But they're 10 goals behind on the goal difference. So that is something that this game against the Young Lions is important for them. Not just the 3 points, I think they'll win, but whether they can sort of pile on the goals. And we've seen the Young Lions collapse in recent weeks, allow opposition to get almost as many as they would like. And I think that should be the message here going into this match, that you need to make up the goal difference. Yes, first of all, collect 3 points, but then start scoring, keep attacking, put them under pressure all the way through. And I think for that, you want to carry on with your strongest available side.
Well, we've spoken about Ilhan, we've spoken about Tanaka. Let's talk about another man who's been very important for Albirex, Idetsu, this season, and what he's brought to this team. Not forgetting that he actually missed a lot of the first half of the season.
He did. He missed quite a few matches through injury. And remember when he started his first couple of games, I'm talking about Community Shield and in the league as well, he was actually playing in a midfield role, I think on the right-hand side. And then they've discovered when he's come back that he's a lot better playing at right back. Okay, defensively, there might be a few deficiencies with him playing in there, but he gives so much in attack that, on the defensive side of things, you can sort of structurally help it out with how you shift across and how you have a little bit more cover in those positions. For example, Kakuta at times can just drop into those areas and help him out defensively. But going forward, he's just been an outstanding outlet for this Albirex Niigata side. The way he's able to cross it in from deeper areas. 16 assists says a lot about the quality that he's providing from wider positions and the kind of delivery he's able to get into the area. It helps that he's got finishers now. Tanaka, who's fantastic in the air, to run onto that. Ilhan's another big physical presence in the box to go and attack crosses. So he's a huge outlet for them on their right-hand side, and it's been very difficult for opposition teams to stop his crosses, especially because he doesn't need to go and beat a man. He can cross from deeper areas and still find those angles and the quality of the delivery to be very dangerous. And let's also not forget the fact that he's come up with some really key goals from set-piece situations, from free-kick situations for Albirex this season.
Okay, let's move on to Geylang. They play Hougang United this week. Geylang, the Eagles are soaring, and they are great form, and we saw what they did against the Sailors. What's been the most impressive thing about Noah Ali's side in recent weeks?
I think the fact that they've shown some variation tactically, they've been very flexible, and this is something that I've touched on in games that we've covered Geylang and over the last few weeks on this show as well. The fact that at times they can switch it between a 5 at the back, they can go a 4 at the back, and they can be, boring, if in inverted commas, boring if they need to be, because they can just make it dull for the neutral. They're quite happy to sit back against opposition, make it difficult, because before then opening up in the second half of matches, and at times, as we saw against the Lion City Sailors, having to respond to going a goal down early and then attacking the league's best side at the moment, the league leaders at the moment, and attacking them and making them feel so uncomfortable. In the press, Geylang were fantastic. So they're playing with a lot of energy, a lot of intensity, a lot of confidence at the moment. They've lost just one of the last 12 matches. They're coming into this game having scored 9 goals in their last 3, conceding just the 1. What is it, like 6 clean sheets from the last 12 games as well. They've just beaten the Lion City Sailors. So that confidence really helps in this side. It's flowing through the team. The only issue that you can perhaps think of that might affect them is Sime Zuzul and whether he's going to be fully fit for the rest of the campaign, including this upcoming match.
Well, you talk was confidence and how they've turned the season around. And that's also been tied with the fact that Vincent Bezakor has found his feet in the SPL.
Yeah. You look at his numbers from the first half of the campaign, and you look at some of the numbers from the second half. What a big contrast. And I heard that there was a point in the season where he actually went back to France for his brother's wedding, And he came back and he seems to be rejuvenated by that trip. So I wonder what he's had over there. And he's come back and he's been in a really good run of form. I mean, you could always see his quality. You could always see glimpses of that in the first half of the season, when perhaps you're still adjusting to it. You could always see his intensity in his play. He is a player who worked very hard, but his numbers just weren't there. He wasn't scoring goals. He wasn't creating those assists. But in the second half of the campaign, I mean, again, you talk about confidence, and I think he's really fully adjusted here. The fact that he's playing in that free role, I think, absolves him of a little bit more of that defensive responsibility. That's not to say he doesn't help press. He does. But that's really not his concern. His concern is to make sure he's there to link the play in attack. And at times you see him popping up on the left-hand side. At times he's popping up on the right, sometimes in central positions. He's very difficult to pick up for the opposition defense in terms of that defensive structure. And he's very quick with how he moves the ball as well. You know, not the biggest of players, so he's very mobile in that attacking midfield role and that free role, I should say, for Bezikor. And his numbers are just incredible right now when you look at, you know, how he's improved in the second half of the campaign. Both him and Zuzul have played a big part in this upturn in Geylang's form.
Well, Geylang and Hougang, that's going to be a very interesting game. What's going to be an even more interesting game? Tampines Rovers up against Lion City Sailors. We've seen some absolute crackers this season between these two teams. But Sailors, they come into this one off that defeat, on the back of the defeat against Geylang. Is it time to panic? Because they really looked short against Geylang.
Yeah, they did look against. They didn't look themselves at all against Geylang. You know, players were making errors. You could chalk it down to it being an off day for them. You know, Shadan, I think, made a few errors, which he doesn't usually make. You know, he's a very good player, normally very confident, comfortable on the ball. But it just seemed like an off day for the side overall. They seem to find themselves in a lot of trouble when Geylang were pressing against them. They pressed with really good intensity. And the concerning thing was they couldn't find their way out in those situations. And that's how Geylang were able to control Lion City Sailors, who've been very dangerous in the counter-attacking moments, in those transitions where they try and find Balestier. And they weren't able to find him on too many occasions, I thought. They weren't really able to get in behind too much. Second half, they had a couple of chances, which they couldn't take. But I think overall, Geylang deserved the win in that one. In terms of panic stations, I don't think it helps anyone to be panicking in the run-in. And I think, you know, they need to just dust themselves off, shake it off. Let's say we go again, we start again. We're still in control, we're still top of the table. Win all our matches, make sure we get those goals, and they'll end up as champions at the end of the season. But it really is, as they say, time now to make sure that your performances are really top-notch and to deliver under that intense pressure. Remember last season, they were chasing Albirex going into the last few weeks. Now they're in that position where they're being chased. So can they sort of deal with that? Can they handle the fact that they are the side at the top and there's all that pressure coming from below in terms of Albirex being just below them? And this game between Tampines and LCS, it's been cracking. Those matches that we see between these two sides over the course of this season, what a wonderful rivalry. Brilliant rivalry, on and off the pitch. I'm really looking forward to this one. Tampines are one of the sides that I know they haven't beaten the Sailors this season yet, but they're a side who know how to play and know how to cause Sailors problems.
Let's bring up the head-to-head meetings between these two sides. Sailors coming out on top on 3 occasions. Yeah. On all 3 occasions, in fact. How do you see this one panning out? Because as you mentioned, we've seen Tampines take the game to Sailors, but still fall short.
Yeah, look, again, you look at some of the head-to-heads here, and they still have, you know, you look at the 2-1 and the 1-0, match week 3 and match week 17. Match week 10, Sailors were able to sort of run away with it in the second half, although it was pretty tight in the first 45 minutes. Tampines Rovers weren't able to take the chances. And in all these matches, when you look at them, you look at those results and you say Sailors should be winning this comfortably. Wasn't the case when you actually watch those matches and you analyze them. Tampines could have won the first one. Tampines could have won the one on match week 17 as well. So they are a team because of how good they are with the ball. They're not afraid to play under the Sailors' intensity of pressure. So they're quite happy to say, we'll play it through you, or we'll try and play it over you, because we do have Boris Kopitovic as well. So they're a side who have a really good game plan. The only thing that tends to hold Tampines Rovers back at times is maybe they don't finish off enough of the opportunities, that's one. And 2, concerns defensively, because let's also remember this is a very young side and there will be those mistakes. And when you look at the gulf in class in terms of the overall quality that the Sailors have in the squad versus the Tampines or even versus the Geylang, the Sailors should be winning these matches, but the fact that they've been forced to sweat in these games says a lot about the ability of these teams.
Well, there's going to be a very, very exciting game, and it is our match of the week. Tampines up against Lion City Sailors. Join Colette Wong and Shashi Kumar. Coverage begins from 5 p.m. So another exciting weekend to look forward to in the Singapore Premier League. We'll be keeping a close eye on the action. Do join us on our YouTube channels as we bring you the games live this weekend. Till next time, goodbye.